In trauma research recently, I came across something about perception. And the perception being that when we have had previous trauma, like post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, then our brains work differently than people who haven't had that kind of impact on their brain. And one of the things that works differently is that our perception of somebody else's words or judgments of us feel like it's internal. And one of the measures that they use for healing from trauma is when we recognize that somebody else's words or judgments are external to us. And that fits in so well with the living inquiries, because we're always looking at thoughts, which are words and images. And very, very often, it's somebody else's thoughts that we're responding to. This morning, I wanted to do an inquiry practice, just looking at whatever's coming up and seeing it as a picture. Scott Killaby in the Living Inquiries talks about thoughts come in as words and images. We hear words, or we see them. We can kind of see them printed out in our mind's eye. And with images, we see them. And that's all we need to do with an image, is look at it, because that's what an image is. It's light and shape and color and depth. And it's our brains that make sense of it. So if we look at a picture of, an ocean, somebody might have a calm response, somebody might have a terrified response. There's all kinds of music might be running in our mind, like Jaws or whatever it is. And as soon as I said that, probably something kind of triggered in some of us at least. So our brains have this associative capacity, and it's generally very helpful in terms of we need to be able to place ourselves in the world and function well, and mostly we need to protect ourselves from danger. But when something goes wrong with that mechanism and we experience somebody out there and their words and thoughts as being in here, inside of us, then that's something that we could work with through the inquiries. We talk about having a trigger on an image or words, and that means that there's some kind of bodily sensation, there's some kind of energy is triggered by it, or maybe there's another series of words or thoughts, images. As we're starting to do this inquiry, close your eyes. Relax your body from head to toes, and notice that you're located in space. Feel the environment around you, the air, your feet on the floor, if they're on the floor, the back of your body as it connects with a bed or a chair or something in your environment. And notice your breath, and notice how we can feel the movement of our bodies with breath. And we can also feel the flow of the breath in the nose. And then bring to mind an image of the ocean. And notice how it shows up in your mind. We'll all have a little bit of a different image, no doubt. It might be a video clip. It might be a still photo. It might be somewhere where we were standing at the ocean, or there might be other people around. There might be a visualization of something we've seen in pictures, but we've never been to. So it could show up in all kinds of different ways. And notice if there's any trigger or hook on that picture for you. Notice if there's any other words or sensations, other images that are arising in response to that image. So for now, we're not going to follow those as a train of thought. We're just going to notice that sometimes an image comes up and we have a response to it. And the response could be fairly neutral. It could be based on our memories. It could be fantasy. It could be some picture we saw somewhere. There might be people in it, there might not be. So we have these different experiences when we bring up an image. And it's the same with words. So if you bring to mind the words, "You're a good person," maybe somebody said that to you, or something positive that someone said. "You have a good heart. You're generous. I appreciate you listening to me. I have fun with you." Something for you, for your experience. Something positive. And when you have that in mind, hear the words in your mind and notice how when we hear words, it's not exactly auditory, but we can kind of hear the words in our thoughts. And there is very likely an image, especially since we're thinking about what someone else has said to us that's positive. You might see that person, or maybe you and that person, or something. It might have been in an email, and you're seeing that. So we're seeing that this is how the brain works. This is how the mind works with words and images. That we kind of hear them. We hear our thoughts in a way, not exactly the way we hear sound, but we're all familiar with that process. And now take those words, whatever they are, and put them up in your mind's eye. Sometimes people see words just kind of hanging in space. Sometimes it's easier to visualize a page or a poster board and put the words onto that. And now as you're looking at those words, notice the size of the letters, the shapes, the color, the font. Notice if they seem benign or if there's anything about the letters that you feel uneasy, you have a response in your body. And notice that these are letters that you're looking at. And then the brain, the mind makes sense of them. But on their own, they're really just shapes with space between them. And an A has a space in the middle of the circle. And if you didn't understand English and you've got English words written up there, you wouldn't know what that meant. You'd just see a series of shapes. And notice the space around the words. Notice that we're imagining these words, we're visualizing them in our mind's eye. And if you're seeing them on a piece of paper or some material, see if you can see the edges of that. Look around the outside of the material that those words are on. And notice that there's space all around the words. And notice if these words feel like they're being experienced internally or externally. If you're aware that these are words that someone else has spoken to you about you. Or if there's a perception that these words are just internal, it's like they're internal to me. So even though it's in your mind's eye, notice if there's a perception of these are words that someone else has spoken. And you might even have an image of them or an image of an email. And then keeping those same words in mind, open your eyes and put the words onto the glass of a window if you can see a window where you are right now, or else onto a wall. and look at them over there. You might even have that image and the words or a caption to the image or a thought bubble. And once you have that established, you're looking at those words that someone said about you. Notice that those words are in space. There's space between you and the window where the words are. There's lots of space outside the window. And there might be insects or birds or clouds or trees or something outside the window. So you can clearly see that those words aren't internal anymore. You're looking at the words someplace else. And the same with that image. And you can see that there's space around the words and image. And space between you and the image and the words. And then close your eyes again. Take note of your body and your breath. Just remembering that we're sitting supported in the environment that we're in. The breath continues to flow. And now bring to mind something negative that someone has said about you or that you think that they're thinking about you. And you can do this with the eyes closed, or you can do it with the eyes open. If it's a little bit intense, then for sure be doing it with your eyes open. So not the worst thing that's ever been said, just some kind of small thing where you feel judged or you're feeling like somebody has an opinion about you that is judgmental or negative. And notice with this if there's a sensation in the body. Most often when we have the experience of somebody being judgmental about us, we feel it inside. If that's the case, notice where that is. Notice the dimensions, the qualities of the sensation. Is it hard and solid in your stomach? Is it coming in from behind and the shoulders are contracting? Whereabouts is that energy, if there is? And what does it feel like? What are the dimensions? Do you have an image of the energy itself? And then we'll come back to that in a moment. But for now, as you're looking at whatever it is that's come up, there might be an image of somebody, might be those words there too. You can look at the words as an image. You could also hear those words. And then open your eyes and put those words up on the window. And notice that what you're doing is you're looking at letters and shapes out there. They're not inside your brain. They're out there on the window. And there's space between you and the window. There's space outside behind those letters. There's space in between the letters. Notice your breath as well. Let your breath flow freely. Those words that someone has said or that image that you might be looking at of the person, look to see if that's you. Whatever those words are, is that you, those words? Is that a self who is the way that that person said? And notice that that is away from your body. It's out there. There's space between you and what you're looking at. And notice if you can see that these are thoughts that you're observing. And in fact, these aren't your own thoughts. They're somebody else's thoughts that you've heard or read or imagined that they're thinking about you. These are not your own thoughts. These are someone else's thoughts, and now they're in your attention, and you're paying attention to them, and you're looking at them. See if you can notice that words are made up of shapes and colors and sizes, and that our brain makes sense of those shapes and turns them into words. But in and of themselves, they're really just shapes. It's the association that we have with the words that creates the meaning, and that also could create a hook or a trigger in us. And if you have your eyes closed or if you have your eyes open, notice if those words are being perceived as something that someone else thinks. Or if it feels like it's true, it's internal, yes, that's me, those words. There's no right or wrong answers to this. We're really looking to see. And especially if you open your eyes, you can see that there's space between you and the words. There's space between you and the image. If it's an image you're looking at colors and shapes. And yet, this is how the brain works. We make sense of it, we associate. And can you tell that those are out there, that they're not in you? That at this moment, at least, if you have your eyes open and you're looking at them, is there a perception that those are words that someone else has said, or that image of someone else is an image that you're looking at on a wall or on a window? And that's how the brain works. And then close your eyes and pay attention again to the energy, the sensation in your whole body from head to toes. Notice what's happened with our breathing. Allow your breath to be smooth and even. And let go of the image, let go of the sensation, just paying attention to the breath for a moment. And letting go doesn't mean getting rid of, it just means letting go of our focus, our focused attention on it. And noticing the whole of our experience from head to toes, the body, the breath, energy, words and thoughts that may still be appearing in the mind. And set an intention in your mind that the next time you're paying attention to something that seems persistent, somebody's negative words about you, or maybe you've heard them so often that they come up in your head. Some of these things that reinforce our core beliefs of not being worthy, or whatever our beliefs are that we formed earlier in life. Set an intention to pay attention to that experience in this way for a few minutes. Looking at the words and the images and noticing that that's what we're doing. The mind has brought forward words and images. There's a sensation in the body. And that just for a moment or two, we can look at it, we can open our eyes, put it on the window, put it on the wall, and notice that it's not internal to us, it's external. Somebody else's thoughts have come up and we're responding to them. And then when you're ready, open your eyes.